Hello everybody, my name is Hubert and welcome to Teach Me channel. Today we'll be looking at GCSE Biology Digestive System. So today I will give you an overview of what is human digestive system and how it works and what are the main organs involved in the digestive system. And I will obviously outline the main functions and all the important bits and bobs you need to know about human digestive system. So, without further ado, let's get started. The way we're gonna do this is we literally will track a journey of food through the digestive system, and as we go, I will explain what each part of digestive system does. Okay, so first of all, we're starting here. Food enters the mouth. Food enters the mouth, and mouth has certain features that help to carry out the very first bit of food digestion. First of all, in mouth we have teeth, obviously, and teeth allow us to start breaking this food down because we bite it, we chew it, so we start mashing it up. We start to chop up the food into little bit smaller bits using our teeth. However, that's not the only thing that our mouth has. Our mouth also has salivary glands, which release saliva. Saliva acts as a lubricant that allows us to sort of push that food further down the digestive system. And also, saliva contains amylase, which is produced in salivary glands. Amylase, as we discussed in a previous video, is an enzyme. It's a very important enzyme in breaking down carbohydrates. So at this stage, we are already using enzymes to break down carbohydrates. Now, a good experiment you can do yourself actually is if you put a piece of bread in your mouth and hold it in your mouth for a long time, you will start tasting sweetness. You will start tasting that this bread is becoming sweet. And that is because amylase breaks down the starch, the big starch molecules, into small sugar molecules, which taste sweet. And that's why we have such a conclusion from this. Okay, so food is broken down a bit by enzymes, a bit by our teeth, and it is pushed down esophagus, which essentially is a tube connecting our mouth to the stomach. Simple as that. And that tube allows us to transport the food. Now, esophagus uses two ways to transport food. First of all, obviously gravity. The food is going down, so that helps. It's being pushed down by gravity. But also, esophagus has some muscle tissue that helps us push the food down using these sort of worm-like motion that pushes the food down into the stomach. So now we are already in the stomach. The main function of the stomach is to actually digest that food. It actually forms a big part of food digestion. First of all, it has muscle tissue, so it literally mashes the food. It mashes the food together, and it sort of makes it into this mush by breaking it down even further. Then we have pepsin. Pepsin is an enzyme, as we discussed in a previous video, and it's an example of a protease enzyme. Pepsin is involved in breaking down proteins, of course, so at this stage it's already breaking down proteins. So here we had in mouth, we had the first stage when we're breaking down carbohydrates. The first stage when we are specifically breaking down proteins is stomach, because that's where the food will come into contact with a protease for the very first time. In this case, pepsin. So, pepsin starts to break down the proteins enzymatically. And also, another important feature of the stomach is HCl, hydrochloric acid. Because stomach consists, the fluid in the stomach is mostly hydrochloric acid. Why on earth would we have a strong acid in our stomach? Well, first of all, it lowers our pH right down to about 2 or 3. Why is that necessary? First of all, pepsin works really well in those conditions. although you don't need to know this, but you could argue that pepsin works in those conditions because it's adapted to HCl in the first place rather than stomach adapting to pepsin in the first place, if you know what I mean. You don't need to know that, but it's just putting it out there for you guys. So, anyway, so hydrochloric acid is important because it provides good conditions for pepsin to work in. Pepsin likes acidic conditions, one of the actually interesting enzymes because of that reason. And another thing it does is it has an immune function. It actually kills bacteria that comes in, that's on a food, and that comes into the stomach. Most of the bacteria will be killed, apart from those that are specifically adapted to this. But most bacteria do not like acidic conditions, in fact, and therefore they will be killed. I mean, that's one of the reasons why pickled stuff lasts for a while, because it's usually dipped in vinegar or something that's really acidic. So bacteria don't like it, and they mostly die. So that has an important immune function, and also hydrochloric acid has a low pH, so sometimes it can denature proteins. It can aid in breaking down proteins as well. Okay, so we break down the proteins, we mash up the food, we kill the bacteria, we disinfect the food. So now we have this essentially mush that is pushed along further. So it enters sort of duodenum. This part is actually called duodenum when it leaves stomach, but it hasn't quite entered small intestine yet. So it goes through duodenum, and then it enters small intestine. Now, small intestine is the organ that absorbs food. The small intestine has villi, little protruding cells sticking out, which have a high surface area, and they aid in food absorption. They help us absorb food. They literally absorb the nutrients from the food traveling through the intestine straight into our bloodstream, where it can be distributed throughout our body. Now, small intestine also produces the three main groups of enzymes. It produces proteases, amylases, and lipases. So again, it aids. It sort of helps us by adding these sort of enzymes and making the things enzymatic. Now, before we move on any further, small intestine is helped by other organs as well, by three other organs. Small intestine is helped by pancreas, which also releases the three main groups of enzymes, proteases, amylases, and lipases, that is released into duodenum, and then it also travels along with the food into small intestine. So these enzymes help to digest food and help us to digest fat. Actually, pancreas and small intestine are the first time where the food will actually come in contact with lipases, the enzyme breaking down fat. Now, so pancreas essentially is like an enzyme factory as far as we're concerned here. Also, we have liver. Liver makes bile that is also injected into intestine. Now, what is the reason for bile? Bile has two functions. First function is it's quite alkaline. So if you think about it, in stomach, we had quite acidic conditions. Now, bile is quite alkaline, so it will neutralize that acid in the intestine, and it will allow all these enzymes that work normally, because they're not pepsin, they are other enzymes that do not like acidic conditions. So bile will neutralize those acids and help those enzymes work correctly. That's one function of bile. Another function of bile is that it acts as a detergent. It emulsifies the fat. What do I mean by that? The bile mixes with fat, and it causes fat to form these little droplets within the bile. And because these little droplets form, these droplets now have a smaller surface area compared to what say like a big blob of fat. Little big blob broken down into tiny blobs overall will have a greater surface area, and those enzymes will get at the fats easier. They will have a much easier job digesting those fats, breaking those fats down, because fats are notoriously difficult molecules to break down. So we need quite a lot of help with that. So that's what bile does. Now the third organ that is involved here is gallbladder. Gallbladder is right next to liver, and it's a sac which stores the bile, and then when muscles squeeze it, it literally releases the bile. So it's a bile storage and release, whereas liver is the bile factory. Liver makes bile. So that's the difference, guys, remember. So back to the food. We have the food going through small intestine, being absorbed, being broken down further with help of all these bits and bobs. And then food leaves small intestine and enters large intestine. Large intestine, the main job of large intestine is to extract excess water that's contained within food. It is extracted by large intestine to obviously recycle as much water as we can. We want to keep the water. We don't want to waste it. So large intestine reduces the water wastage by sort of extracting as much water as it possibly can. So the food works its way through large intestine, and then it enters rectum, where the waste that's left over after food is removed from our body. So that's it. That's our whole digestive system. So as you can see, we have lots of organs involved. That's why it's an example of an organ system. We have lots of organs coming together to perform a complex overarching function of food digestion, and each of these organs has a smaller task that's involved in food digestion. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I really appreciate, guys, when you watch these videos. I hope this video helped you immensely. If it did, give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay up to date on daily math, science and biomedical science videos, hit that subscribe button below. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.